Want to know how to perfect your one-handed backhand?
52 miles per hour, 13 in a row. 50 miles per hour, 14 in a row.
I actually started with a two-hander, but when I was 11 or 12, I asked my dad to help me change to a one-hander because I thought it was a lot cooler. And my dad actually wasn't too happy about that because he knew as a coach that a one-hander is a lot tougher to master. And that's basically why we don't teach it from the get-go. We teach kids, we teach beginner adults, a two-hander. Obviously, switching to a one-hander didn't halt my progress to top 30 in the world. But there are definitely some things on a one-hander that are tougher to master. And in this video, I'm addressing 3 of the most common issues that I see with the one-hander. But before we get into those details, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, Swing Vision. And by now you should know how big of a fan I am of watching yourself play. And of course, if you have an app that makes the recording and the reviewing so simple, it makes it so easy to see exactly what you're doing right and what you still have to improve on. And for me as a coach who works remotely with a lot of players, it is so important that I'm not spending 8 hours scrolling through videos. With Swing Vision, it edits out all the dead time so I can just go from point to point to point. And you also have the filter function where you can literally filter out each individual stroke that you want to review. So for instance, on these videos that I'm using here, I wanted to see only backhands. And here's how you do that. You simply click on the filter function here. And in this instance, I wanted everybody's backhand. So I'm looking at the finishing shot, backhand winner, backhand error, click done. You get 21 backhands here. And then you simply click play. And then you see every single point that ends with the backhand. Of course, you get all the statistics just like you see them on TV, but if you are more of a visual learner, then the heat maps are really important for you. Obviously, you see where you're hitting the balls, but you also see where you hit them from. And in the heat maps as well, you can filter for specific shots. If you want to take more ownership of your own development and almost replace us tennis coaches, go ahead and use the link down below, and you also get the free swing stick fence mount, which is worth $100. In the annual Pro subscription, you get 30 hours recording time per month, and it comes down to about $15 a month. You get free international shipping and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Now let's get back to the one-handed backhand, and I'm using footage from 3 Swing Vision subscribers who are dealing with, the most common issues I see on one-handers. The first tip is you have to coil appropriately. That's Simon here in the foreground, and you'll notice that he has a pretty limited take back. If we slow this down here, the furthest he's taken his racket back is when his shoulder, his right shoulder, points to the net. And to my mind, he could get a lot more on the ball if he could turn a little bit more and also start his preparation a little bit sooner. Because you notice as the ball is bouncing, his racket is nowhere near the furthest coil that he could potentially get. And because he has such limited coil and is a little late in the preparation here, he just has to rely completely on his arm. If you want to hit a powerful one-handed backhand, you have to use your entire body. And it starts with a good coil, with a good turn of your shoulder, and of course your hip. And if you were to hit with me, I am coiled as much here in the preparation of my one-hander that you see my right shoulder blade. I'm that far turned. That turn here allows me to create and store energy, and it is actually the action to the reaction of uncoiling. And if you're not coiling enough in the beginning, it's all arm. And make sure that you're about as far as you will take the racket back, and you're about as far coiled as you will be when your opponent's ball is bouncing. And I'd rather have you wait in this position here where you have energy stored than being rushed because you're late in the preparation and you really can't create energy at all that way. The next issue that we face as one-handers is that we have a slightly different ideal strike zone than two-handers. Obviously, two-handers have the help of the extra hand, and it makes it a lot easier to handle high balls. Receiving high balls as a one-hander is anything but comfortable. James here with the blue shirt has a solid backhand, but he does let the ball come up over his shoulder a little bit too often. So on this ball here, to my mind, he should have either moved up or dropped back, because that here is too high of a contact point, even if we take into account the different perspective. On this last ball here, James has the right idea to move back, but he's not quick enough. And you do see very clearly here why those high balls are difficult for us one-handers. Whereas usually we teach shoulder to hip for a two-hander, for us one-handers, I'd go from about chest high to top of the thigh. That's where we want to have our contact points. And if I'm getting a higher, deeper ball, my tip is to move back and let that ball drop back into your ideal strike zone. Here's how you move back quickly and turn at the same time. So as you see that the ball's coming higher and deeper and you make the decision you want to back up, you bring the left side of your body back if you're a right-hander. And that also, of course, initiates the racket work here. I'm turned, and now I'm using a front crossover to use one big, huge, quick step to move me back. If I need more, I can either now shuffle or even one more time a crossover. Yes, that brings me into a more passive position, but from back here, I can rip the ever-loving baloney out of the ball. High heavy is good as a defensive ball, and that then allows me to regain a more aggressive court position. The last issue that I see a whole lot with one-handers is that they hit very, very flat. And you see Swoopnil here, and by the way, he's one of the founders of Swing Vision, and I'm hoping he's not firing me as Swing Vision ambassador because I critique him. But you do see that he hits very, very flatly, and he hardly gets under the ball. Swoopnil here in the foreground tends to hug the baseline pretty closely, so maybe need to move back. And you see on this ball here, the take back here, you notice that yes, he does have the racket head above his hand, but on the racket drop, the racket head does not come under the ball. So he can only swing forward very flatly. And then, of course, if you're inside the court, you might just hit that ball deep. This is on a lower ball. Again, good racket lift. But you also want to let that racket head drop. So in this position here, I would love to see that racket head at least that low. And of course, your entire body needs to come under the ball as well. Yes, if you hit the ball flat, you get a lot more pop on the ball. But the one highlight winner is offset by a whole lot of misses into the net because you don't have net clearance. When we talk about getting under the ball, I'm talking about two things. Number one is it has to be your entire body. Your entire body has to lower. You have to have a really stable and compact position here. But you're also working on letting the racket head drop below your hand and the incoming ball, because that here allows you to swing up very steeply forward and up to your contact point, which imparts topspin on the ball, and that is what lifts the ball. That is what keeps it out of the net. When you're working on this, you want to feel like you're completely overdoing it. You want to feel as if you're literally scraping the floor with your back knee, because one thing that I've learned from watching myself is that what you feel you look like and what you actually look like are two completely different things. And when you feel totally silly and weird and awkward, you just simply look like an athlete who's trying to adjust something on their swing.